The topic is the crisis at the Salvation Army, and we're talking to the area commander, Major RRaymer, and the market and research developer, Mr. MServais. And of course, Mr. Servais and Major RRaymer, before we had our first commercial break, we promised Mr. Servais that we'd give you an opportunity to talk about your extensive experiences in the Salvation Army. I say that because I think I spoke to you earlier, and you not only did you give me some information relative to the Salvation Army, but you've been involved in quite a number of social activities. And so let's get that information on record here today.
You live 59 years and stay awake, you're going to get involved in some things. But my family, to keep it comparable on the history thing, my family got involved with the Salvation Army during the Great Depression because the Salvation Army pulled my grandparent and her children out of a junkyard in Wisconsin during the Depression and fed them and housed them and got them medical care to cure polio and rickets and provided them with shelter. And my grandfather got out of jail finally because he was not a good man, but he became a good man through grace. And he committed his life and his family's lives to the Salvation Army, and it started there. And I was born in the Salvation Army. I've done many other things in nonprofit, Buddies of Nashville being one of my all-time favorites for about 15 years here in town, and halfway house work, the Child Protective Services, Board of Parks, numerous things like that, all of which were preparatory for today. And this moment, and whatever God's going to put in front of us.
You know, Major RRaymer, I think one of the things that sort of comes through dealing with this is that there's a very, very close family connection and family tie in the Salvation Army. Is that general, or is that just peculiar between the two of you having that kind of family relationship in the Army? Do you find that throughout? Or what?
Oh, that is throughout. The very nature of the organization, and because it is a faith-based organization, it just perpetuates itself. So that's pretty common.
Why don't you give our audience some information in reference to the Army itself? Because I think that most of us see the Army only at Christmas time with bell ringers and etc. And we certainly know that it's more than that. Let's talk about a short historical sketch, if you will, dealing with the Salvation Army.
Well, of course, the Salvation Army, as I've already mentioned, is a faith-based organization, but I don't believe that terminology was around back when William Booth, our founder, actually started the Salvation Army by the direction of God, and that would have been in 1865. In fact, back at the end of our Civil War here in the United States. And the Salvation Army has grown from that, of course, worldwide. Its main mission is to preach and show the gospel of Jesus Christ. In other words, to win souls to the kingdom of heaven through Jesus Christ. Now, we do that both in word and action. The Salvation Army's motto from the very beginning takes its heartbeat from William Booth, who said, soup, soap, and salvation. You got to clean them up and feed them first before you can talk to anybody about the love of Christ. And that's been our motivation from the very beginning and still is today here in Nashville.
Mr. Servais, you mentioned earlier a number of programs that you're involved in, and I'd like to sort of follow up on this idea of the crisis, because from a newspaper article that we read, you are having some real serious problems in terms of your financial resources and cutback and et cetera. Why don't you give our audience some idea in reference to the challenges that you're now facing, and perhaps they can recognize